Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you. The lighting today is not exactly what you would call the normal brightness. That's not helping either. I could turn the lamp on, but I just don't feel like it. I've got to get an overhead light here to do this thing. Just one of those things. It's either that or I get up, take the headphones off, turn on the other light. Let me do that. Okay, hold on a second. We're live. Does that do anything? Does that do anything? Not much. All right, here we go. We're live. Nobody's watching. Got my headphones set up. Shirt of the week. Then what? Let's try that again.
Good morning.
And good morning to you. A bright and good morning to you. Those who've been following the show know that I usually talk about the weather. It's 19 degrees here right now. And I was going to go for a walk down to the old supermarket this morning. But it's 19 degrees, and it looks like it's going to stay 19 degrees for the next several hours. So much for that, that convenient melt off of the snow in most parts of the country, particularly my neck of the woods. That was nice, but yeah, what can you do? If you were brought into this by the title card with the 3D glasses and the guy with, if you remember in the back of the magazines, they used to have these advertisement, not magazines, comic books. They used to have these magazines for X-ray gogs, and it has that's the guy who was looking at the girl or looking at his hands and seeing the bones. Of course, didn't work. It was like the sea monkeys, right? You get these pet sea monkeys. I have a picture of those things somewhere too. I've been meaning to print that out. I should actually just print that out right now, just for the sake of it. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to search for sea monkeys. Sea monkey. The search on the Apple computer is the worst search. Somehow they just were never able, once they went back to this ancient, I don't know what it is. Steve Jobs was responsible for doing this. But it just never, it just was never the same. So I'm going to print these out. Print, low toner, I see. While I'm here, I wonder if I should, let's see. Good morning, folks. Washing. Earlier, I saw a washing machine that I'd spoke about. I don't like to leave people hanging when I talk about a thing, and I know there's some people that just, that's my printer in the background, have no idea what I'm doing. Right now, I'm looking at something, so I'm not really looking at the camera. washing machine. Well, I know where it is. It's under my old magazine listing under art. Go to the bottom. And there should be a washing machine in here. Well, anyway, while I'm talking to you, washer, it was called. Let's try that. We're going to do this. I'm going to walk over to the copy machine, printer/printer scanner. I'm going to scale this thing up, print, get out of that, get out of that. That's what I look like. I'll be right back. Just take a second, folks. It's just so bright over there. Maybe what I ought to do with that would I need to diffuse that lighting somehow, folks. Yes, we're on a live channel. There's a guy here. Hold on. Should have done this before, but I didn't. We'll try the old Woody Allen trick. Let's see. Is this light get hot? Maybe it doesn't. Try that. Is that too? That's too much of a dimming. Is it too much of a dimming? Yeah, too much. There was a time when we used to, the cool thing to do, my hair. I guess it's because I have a white hat on too. And so I got everything's reflecting, and I got that Then What shirt here, which is hard to bring into the format. This is the shirt you got to wear. Then what? It's either that or the other one. Can you see my book Codex back here? Yeah, there it is. Anyway, this show and tell time. This was the picture of sea monkeys. You know, and I kind of leave that like so. It's too bad that they don't have this set up to where I could actually have this placed on this side of the screen where it actually literally lived there. But you know, make a screen capture of that because nobody has. I worked hard to clean that up because I used this in a magazine I published. And you know, these things were tiny and it was an old comic book, and you know, so I had to really clean them up. So that's like a very clean version. See the little kid down the bottom only has one eye, the Cyclops. But supposedly you sprinkled these in the water and you had a family of sea monkeys growing as your pets. Sea monkeys. This, and I guess I could take this one back. This is what's called a ringer washer. And so in the very old days, you put your clothes in this thing. In the old days, there was either some kind of foot pedal or something that caused the agitation of the clothes. Then eventually this became powered so that there would be a motor that moving, shaking your clothes. And this is a roller and that's a roller. And you would put your clothes through there after they were washed. And this would like kind of take most of the water out of them, like wring them dry. And then you'd put them on the line. This hose here was just I guess what would be wringed out. This would be coming back into the drain. So you wouldn't have a mess on the floor. It's a ringer washer. They used these things right up through the 60s. Yeah. So I was trying to explain the whole idea, and just once again, somebody tuning in late, show and tell. That's a sea monkey. And on the title card, the guy in between the 3D glasses, he was the X-ray goggles guy, and I could have printed that out too, but I didn't. I didn't. So here I am, trying to get comfortable in my very cheap chair, buy a shirt, a book, 10 books. I have a CD, which I don't have a copy of, but I just ordered 2 of them wholesale. They're discontinuing this thing on Amazon that was called Media on Demand. It was a very weird thing, and it's like the best of my music. And the only problem is this makes no sense. So Amazon, this big digital company, you send them digital files, and they created this CD. All right. Like I said, I don't have a copy because I gave the last one away, and I just ordered 2 more, but they're closing the service down. So I'll probably I might order a dozen of them if I ever get that $1,400 check. But in the absence of that, it's not available digitally. So, I mean, some of my songs are available digitally. I guess most of them are available digitally. But I mean, it would be nice to have had this album to compete with this other one, which I'll show you. I have to get up again. It's show and tell day, I guess, and adjust the chair day. This one, which is the one that you're going to see that image of me with the beret, this 8 tracks. The glare here is ridiculous. No wonder it's so ridiculously bright. But if you look at the song list on here, let me just get this to a point. What's happening is it's somehow picking up lights from across the room, which makes no sense because they're behind everything. But the songs that are good on here is track number 3, EYKIW, which basically is the abbreviation for this, which we have the corresponding shirt. Everything you know is wrong. And the other good track is the Christmas classic, seasonal classic, the worst Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa song ever written or sung. And there's a couple other songs on there that some people like. I don't really like the rest of it, and I was in a different mindset here. In fact, quite frankly, I was leaning a little bit, a little bit too far in a different direction ideologically. I don't know. But I got a ton of these, and this is available for sale, but this can be bought digitally, and this can be listened to on Spotify. Problem is, because it was the first one I did, it's at the top of Spotify. So people see it and they play a couple tracks and they go, well, I don't know, that stuff is weird, or I don't like that guy. And they don't go forward. But I've got like 50 songs I've written, like 36, tracks. And, like I said, at least a dozen or 2 that are really good. And this other CD that's only available as a CD, not digitally on Amazon, they're even discontinuing this music on demand service that I have it set up in. And it's not available in digital form, only CD. So when I get the CDs, I'll probably get them next week. I'll hold one up like I did with that. And that'll be that. So I don't know. After all that said and done, let's get this show on the road. Yeah. Let's get the show on the road. So, what's the latest going on? And why did I put that title card up? It's plain to see if you'd open your eyes, or if you just look, take a look, or whatever. I mean, what did I exactly call that? I wonder if I have a misspelling. It's plain to see if you'd just look. And I guess what I'm trying to say with that is that, there's an awful lot going on right now. Like an awful lot going on right now. And it's, and I know I sound like a broken record, which is a meaningless reference for people who don't use records or understand the concept of a record skipping. And so it would it would get caught in a groove. And so it would be, so it would be, so it would be, so it would be, so it would be scratch. So it would be this, that's a broken record. The beginnings of, DJs doing the scratching thing, was basically something that used to happen accidentally when you had a bad needle on your record player. But, I do sound like a broken record when I say this, but it gets into this politics as pop culture thing and our obsession with the cult of personality, particularly several personalities. I'm going to move this back so it doesn't overwhelm your speakers. But there are so many things going on, not just behind the scenes, but around the world. Everything from a meaningless thing I saw today, just briefly, when I was just scanning some stuff, where to get the cheapest beer. And apparently South Africa and Ukraine, you could still get a beer for like under $2, $1.68 or $1.78 or something like that. It's under $2 beer. In America, it's already up to like $4 something. Like I say, I could remember buying, down at the shore, getting 5 beers for $1 or something, or 3 quarts of Bavarian beer for $1. 3 quarts. It's 33 cents for a quart of beer. I mean, if you could drink 3 quarts of beer, will basically knock you on your ass. So yeah, that's crazy. So if people went out and said, "Oh, let's go out and get some quarts," you didn't even. I mean, you basically could use change in your pocket when there was change. Now I see there's this weird shortage of change, and and there's all sorts of stories and conspiracy theories about why there's a shortage of change, and the idea of getting rid of. It's a garbage truck picking up my garbage. I put 2 bags out yesterday. Those wanting to know about my ongoing health issues, apart from the noise outside, which this is an omnidirectional microphone, so I don't know if it's picking that up strong or not. I thought it was a directional, but I was looking at the directions yesterday. I threw away the box in that garbage with my garbage, and I kept the sheet out, and it said it was omnidirectional. I thought it was directional, just like right at you. Cardioid microphone can be used in recording studios. So, yeah, it's just it's just kind of crazy, all these things. So from the price of beer skyrocketing when there was the craft beer movement, and I'm sure there's people out there who still are caught up in that world, but it pretty much it bottomed out. I had predicted it at the time because I said, this isn't it. And now we're into the sparkling, flavor beverage, beer, malt beverage movement. If you notice that. I mean, granted, some of them taste half decent. There's some, like, I used to drink an Iron City would in the summertime. I don't know if they're going to do it or continue doing it, but I know in the past, and this is a couple of years ago, not that long ago. I might have even gotten one last year. I'm not sure, but I know definitely the year before. They had an Iron City Light Mango, and a 6-pack of that. Like, that was a good tasting beer. It still had you still felt like you were drinking beer, but it had a mango flavor. It wasn't like a beer cooler, so to speak. But now, YouTube just sent me the live thing, and I like to inspect the card because sometimes they cut off key portions of the card. Like, they're inconsistent. So I have to remember this size seems to work perfectly. But, so I had bought some, I'll generally would drink a lighter beer. And so I bought a pack of these, seltzer or whatever they were, multi-pack, assorted pack. And me and a friend were drinking, doing happy hours. I don't know, months ago. And within that was a lime, because I know Bud Light has a lime. I mean, which originally was, I guess they were going after Corona. You put the lime in the Corona, and then Corona actually was one of the highest calorie beers. So, carbs. So people who were concerned about carbs, there was Corona was like, you drink Coronas, you better be working out, and jogging, because otherwise you're going to get the beer belly. Then I had Corona Light, but I used to like Corona. I like Coronas with the lime in there. You put the lime thing in, you put your thumb over it, then hold it upside down until the lime works its way all the way to the bottom. You turn it over, and you just get a little psh. If you do it right, doesn't like foam out. And that's the secret of how you drink a Corona with a lime. And then so Bud Light came out, and some of these beer companies, I don't know if it was just Bud Light or something, but I think they even tried coming out, and with like almost, it was like a margarita type of flavor thing. Remember that? They were lime-aritas. Do you remember those coming out in cans? And then I guess that started to sell, and then they would, instead of it just being like a margarita, what they call a lime-arita, because a margarita, when you make a margarita, I mean, I'm the bar guy. You basically take the lime, you take a margarita glass, you take a wedge of lime, and you run that around the rim of the glass. Okay, your margarita glass. And then you have margarita salt, and that comes in a container that's rounded to fit the top of the margarita glass. So you sprinkle some margarita salt there, or wherever, and then you put the glass on that. And because you put the lime on there, you put the top of the glass on the salt. The salt sticks to where the lime was. You turn that over, and then pour in your margarita, and then just put the wedge of the lime on the side of the glass and hand it to the young lady or whoever. But so that's why it would be lime-arita, because lime would be a part of that. But then they started having some different flavors, because, as you know, you could get all these flavored margaritas and these things, and the bars have all these slushy machines now with different drinks. But the latest thing, it's not the latest, but the most recent movement that's overpowered the hoppy, what the micro brew, so to speak, movement are the big companies coming out with these like beer beer, seltzer water beers, type of sparkling beers. And they're in flavors. And so I had tried the lime one, and that was half decent. There was one that was cranberry. I used to drink vodka and cranberry, I think, at one point years ago. And they had a cranberry that was almost similar to that. I mean, you could drink these things on ice. I always drank beer on ice anyway, because I like a cold beer. And a lot of bars I would go to, their taps, whatever their system was, their beers weren't coming out ice cold. And it's a summertime. I'm going to a bar, maybe an outdoor deck place or something like that. And, they give you a beer and it's like, hey, this isn't the UK. You go over to London and order a beer. They serve it to you warm, Some countries are like that. I like an ice cold beer. And so I used to always put ice cubes in my beer. People look at me like I'm kind of funny, but yeah, I am funny. I'm a funny guy. So I would do that. And anyway, so these things you can really put ice cubes in it, because it almost just doesn't taste like it's more of a drink than like a and you can't even taste the alcohol in it. So it's like this generation, now has lost that concept. Believe me, those 3 quarts for $1 beer, it tasted like beer, and it had a beer flavor. It used to be the thing, when you were young, your first beer, you had to acquire a taste. But once you acquired the taste for beer, then you just drank it. And you drank it, let's face it, you drank it because it was a party and you wanted to get, happy, And I always got a kick out of people pretended they didn't, well, I don't drink. You basically drink. The word drunk is the wrong word. I mean, drunks are, people that get out of control when they drink. Yeah, I've got no respect for them. But, you drink, the reason there's beer it's called a beer party or whatever, or a keg party, is because it's supposed to be a happy time. And that's the medium in which people use. But it's interesting to see that changeover, and so, but what happened was when the hoppy beers came out, and I say that because they were just putting so much hops in it that you just could taste the hops. At one point I bought some hops, on Amazon, just a little packet of hops. And I put them in one of those things like a coffee grinder type of thing, ground it up, and had an old spice, like something you would have seasoning in, just a spice container, with the holes in the top, and washed that out. Oh, I don't know what was in it before, but rinsed it out, washed it out, dried it. And I put these hops that I ground, and I went to the bar, because I used to be a regular at this one bar, and I ordered like the cheapest beer they had. And I challenged this guy who was a representative of the beer company. I sprinkled my hops in this, into this cheap run of the mill beer, right? And stirred it up. And I said, hey, have you tasted this new microbrew? And he drank it and was like, yeah, it's hoppy. It's, yeah, it tastes pretty good, but not, I don't know. What is it? Which one is it? And I told him that it was basically the cheapest beer in the bar. And, with this stuff in. And then I had thought, I go, and I wasn't about to do it, because I'm, I have no ambition to put a product on the market. But I had my idea of just buying hops in bulk and buying these spice containers in bulk, and then just calling it, instant, microbrew or instant, things, because all the reviews you'd see about beers they'd always be like talking about the hops and how, as if the more hops you could taste, the better the microbrewer was, or something. It was something, it was along those lines. And yeah, it was just a thing, and it worked. But at the time, I used to tell these beer representatives, because I had a magazine and they were advertising with me, and I had all kinds of beer products. I think I went through that in a different episode, showing all the things, that I got. And I used to tell them, I said, this isn't going to last. I said, these beers aren't as good as you think. And I mean, some of them, it wasn't so much, then they were putting chocolate in them. I mean, some of the higher end ones were like really, it was an interesting experiment in drinks, but they were, it was, chocolates and, very interesting flavors, but I knew there was no way they were going to take over at a level to sell enough units in order to maintain enough market share for the company to be profitable. And that's the key thing. You have to sell, if you come up with a product, you have to sell enough of the product in order to stay in business. And so that whole thing just kind of faded out. Like, it's not like the microbrewers faded out. You could go right now to many microbrewers. And this must aggravate the microbrewers, this whole new thing. But if you walk into a beer distributorship or a six-pack shop, so to speak, it's just loaded with flavors and stuff. And you have to, the hoppy beers, those microbrew beers, so-called microbrew beers, would be, they're hard to find. They're on the bottom shelf somewhere, or they're out of, And it's just an interesting phenomenon. And some of the flavors are just ridiculous, like, peach and, because like I said, I remember buying an assortment pack and strawberry. Yeah, that's right. And there were 3 cans of strawberry, and there was like 12 cans, 3, 3, 3, and 3, and there's 3 limes. Okay, I could deal with that. 3 cranberries. Yeah, I could deal with that. But then there was like peach and strawberry. And I'm like, who wants a strawberry beer, sparkling strawberry beer? It's ridiculous. I mean, I could imagine like putting a scoop of ice cream or something on top of it. Or I guess putting it on ice with some fresh strawberries in a bar or something. It's very, very strange. And the stuff's not cheap either. Those 12 packs are very expensive. The whole point of this whole entire thing is that, and we'll even get back into the, pop culture, politics is pop culture, because beer is pop culture. So we're talking pop culture, which I prefer, since I'm the king of pop culture. The idea is, once they get a price point, come up with an excuse to do a thing, to raise a price point, say. And for example, with the microbrews, these were small operations, so they had to charge more because they weren't producing in bulk. So some of these microbrews were like $8. There were some microbrews you were paying $10, for a beer, right? And so I guess it even became this like, look how cool I am. It's like when Apple first came out with the apps, there was an app that just said it cost $5,000. It was on the App Store for a short period of time. And all it was some kind of screen when you bought the app that showed that you bought the app. So it was a status of, hey, did you get the $5,000? Look, I got the $5,000 app. And that was on for a little while. Then Apple took it off. But it's that whole idea, that was this phenomenon, to the extreme. Like, look how cool I am. I've got $5,000 to piss away on an app that does nothing but allows me to show you, put in your face that I've got money. And the microbrews were a lot of that too. And sometimes I'd try sneaking a little look at people as they would drink this $10 thing, and to see if they weren't wincing, and, were they really enjoying that, like, overdose of hops, right? Like I say, which anybody could do after the fact, and just sprinkle some hops in a regular beer, and it would taste like about, I don't know, say 60%. 2/3 of the microbrews were just basically beer with extra hops, in them. It was strange, which you could reproduce in your own kitchen. And hops are cheap to buy. You could buy a little pack of hops, and like I say, put it in a coffee grinder. But, so then the prices of beers never went down once they reached that point. And it's like everything in society, not just pop culture, is that way. That's what this mask thing that's going on right now, the danger of that is once they implement a thing, societies, then it's very hard to get it out of the system. It becomes normalized, right? The new normal. Ridiculous statement. And that's, and so it doesn't matter whether it's beer, or the mask, or whatever the newest thing is. And you have to always, I always pointed those things out to people, but as usual, nobody pays attention, to people who see things. And that's kind of what I'm saying. It's plain to see if you just look. But this isn't about beer, and this isn't about masks. This isn't even about, the wool being pulled over our eyes by the politicians or the corporatocracy that run the politicians, and the fact that, the emperor's wearing no clothes and has dementia, right? That doesn't matter. That's like, people just don't want to see that. They can't see it, right? The person could stutter. It was like when Hillary Clinton, while I was looking for the sea monkey things, because it was from an old magazine thing I was publishing, I came upon a couple of slides of, Hillary Clinton, the classic one where she was, they were basically three people were holding her up, trying to put her in this big SUV, and she just dropped a couple of times. And then there was and there were about 3 or 4 different incidents at 3 or 4 different places where, she clearly exhibited signs that she had some kind of serious physical problem. And the media just totally ignored it and gave some kind of lame excuse, or PR people. She was exhausted that day. It's like, a lot of people are exhausted, but they don't, do that stuff. And then, of course, there was that other weird stuff, like looking up in the sky and doing that weird stuff that was just like downright like bizarre. But, that's how that's how people have been programmed in our society right now, is to hear something from some talking head that for some reason has gained a level of popularity or something like that. I don't know what it is, but the glamour, in the sense of like witchcraft, so much, maybe even the idea that this whole concept of the black mirror, all right, is an old term, witchcraft type of thing. And that's exactly what these things are. It's a black mirror. They used to warn about that. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And this idea that mythology, magic, and all that, all these kinds of spirituality, all these things, that there's truth to everything. you know. That's why that other shirt of mine, yeah, this said, it should have said at the beginning, paid whatever for endorsements or something. But my other shirt is, you don't know what you don't know. And I encourage everyone to buy that thing. But the problem is that, well, it's only a problem if you let it be a problem to you. Put it that way. Like, see, for me, it's not a problem. I'm out here because I have this belief that in service to others instead of service to self, and that's what you do with your life. And so I'm on this planet, I have this life, I can live. I thought I was dying last week. This week I feel a lot better. Right. And the idea is that, and the human body's an amazing thing. I guess I could keel over, during this live broadcast, but I feel a lot better. I felt, I felt last week like I was dying. I felt like I was dying. I didn't know if I was gonna have a stroke, a heart attack, or I had some kind of weird other thing. I don't know what it was. And I just got into this major antiviral, anti bacterial, not necessarily antibacterial, but I guess you could say antibacterial. Anyway, every food I ate, everything I consumed were things that were, that either boosted your immune system or were considered like antivirals or anti something or other, the other thing, not biotic, but whatever. And I just, and that was it. I didn't eat anything else but, maybe one or two slight, had a slice of Swiss cheese on something or whatever. But even that, I think, has some, out of all the cheeses, there's like some kind of vitamin or something in there that's even good for you. But that wasn't why I had it. I just have this cheese in my refrigerator and I don't want it to go to waste. But, so, that's the beauty of the human body, that it does heal. It has its ability to heal itself. And I was seriously considering at one point going to the hospital, and I know what that would have just been, like CT scans, chest x-rays, being in a germ-filled environment for an entire day, perhaps even overnight, getting blood work and coming back. And then if indeed I'm on the mend, they would have sent me home and said, you just need more rest or whatever, or something weird like that. I don't know. So, it's, that's like, I don't know. That happens every now and then. It's a puzzling thing. But you need to smile. Well, let's get into sound effects.
Good morning. Here's what's happening.
So, yeah. So I'm trying to get at this point, and to drive it home, something a little bit different is, forget, it doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if it's the pop culture, politics is pop culture, the cult of personality. If you're stuck in that groove, to have another record reference, then, I'm sorry. I'm trying my best. I've got 100 videos out here. I do these things for an hour and a half every day. And, for the sole purpose of just trying to get, these messages out to share this information. I've written, like I said, I've written 10 books. Here's a book that'll kind of made to shake your mind. It's not so much transformative, but it's a book to get your mind to think differently. I think after reading that book, you open yourself up in a different way. It's a short read and all that. And I've talked about it. And I've got these shirts that are just thought-provoking shirts. But I'll be honest with you, nobody bought a shirt, nobody bought a book. Okay? Nobody bought a CD. I get tons of these. Nobody bought that other CD I talked about. I got some royalties. I got $10 coming in royalties for my songs being played over the past year. $10 I made. Think about that. Because you make like a fraction of a cent or a penny or something like that. All right. I just got a notification that today. It's like $10 on its way. I'm demonetized. I don't make any money on these videos. Whether 100,000 people watch these or the usual 2 or 3 or 7 or 12 or whatever it is. I'm throttled. Okay? So they don't want the message out. Even, but I'm doing it, and I'm doing it for you. Okay? That's what this is about. This video is for you. It's not for me. I mean, and maybe in some regards, it's a little therapeutic for me to discuss this stuff out. I live alone with a cat. And so, yeah, this is a morning conversation that I'm having with my imaginary friends out in YouTube land. Perhaps there's some sort of psychology going on with that. I don't know. I haven't really examined that. Just came off the top of my head now, but I'm sure there's something like that. And if there is, so what? It's not worth for examining that much. But the thing that I just want you to know the purpose that as Elvis Costello said, my aim is true here. I'm just trying to share my insights, my experience, my travels with you. All right. In the hope that it's going to basically, in some way, shape, or form, give you an opportunity or open your mind to something that maybe it took me, a long time, or I had to make a mistake before I learned that thing. I'm also here just entertaining because, let's face it, sea monkeys are pretty funny, And I think the abusiveness of, this whole idea of a Ringer washing machine that was in existence, 60 years ago, and it less than 60 years prior to that, people were using outhouses in the United States of America 2,000 years after the Romans had aqueducts and toilets and indoor water. At least the wealthier ones did, but the average person, they had the public baths and things like that. So, heated baths and toilets and stuff. So the idea that 2,000 years after the fall of that empire, this empire 100 years ago didn't even live up to the standards of the previous one, one that existed 2,000 years ago. So everything happened in the last, 100, 150 years. And now it's all falling apart. And what my point is that once it falls. And like Rome, it doesn't come back. For centuries, somewhere else, a civilization starts to pop up. But like I said before, they didn't figure out how Romans even made concrete. The reason why, Roman structures are still standing that they built out of concrete, they didn't understand the formula for Roman concrete until 2,000 years later. I mean, that's what it's like when a civilization falls. And like I say, if the power goes out now, boom, all of this is over. You're back. If you don't use your creativity, your five senses, your brain and your consciousness, that's what this book talks about. The hard problem of consciousness, the idea. In other words, are you awake in the sense of not this woke nonsense, whatever that game is, people with their little wooden stick on a cardboard sign made with a magic marker. I want this. Well, my answer to that is then what? Okay. Right? Then what? It's still you and your five senses living on the planet. And the reason those glasses on the title card of this video, those 3D glasses, are filled with images of the sun is that we're facing potentially, they say there's no certainty in any of these things. It's just knowledge and science and physics and all of these things they're just ways in which we examine the information that we take in, and we make deductions. All right. And sometimes in those deductions, we may have some sort of, we might have predictive behavior in a sense. But, that's the word predicting something is a strong word. That's why even in medicine and stuff, you're never sure about something. There's more, the better word is there's a good probability, a high probability of success and this, that, the other, and whatever. And that's why the truth is so important. And when there's misinformation out there or things are done for political purposes, it's really sad because you're denying people the opportunity to use their brains to digest the facts and make a decision, an educated decision for themselves on what they should do. Well, I have examined the facts. I've read the papers. I've listened to presentations by PhDs and various people who study the sun, who study earth sciences, magnetic fields, and things of that nature, and who look at long-term cycles of the earth through archaeology and and every way possible. Okay. From physics, the astrophysics and the mechanics, known mechanics of the universe, and everything in between. Okay. And the conclusion that I've come up with through many of these other individuals, countless individuals, actually, serious scientists, all right, is that apart from there being a garbage truck outside my front door, is that the sun may well nova sometime within the next 25 years. And that this is a cyclical event. And it happens every 12,000 years or so. And we're basically at that point right now in time. And as you know, with any kind of, when you're dealing with a body in space, the size of the sun or, our planet, when you're talking about magnetic fields, and we're going through various, we're constantly moving at speeds that are not worth even mentioning. Okay, how fast the sun is dragging us through space. said this before too. Was Alan Watts. Someone asked him one time about what about space, man? He goes, we're out in space, way out in space. That's the truth. We're on, the sun is dragging the earth and its various satellites with it. In fact, it's at incredible speeds. All right. So when, you have cyclical events that we can predict and that have been measured by people. Some things there are 400-year cycles that a lot of people are looking at, that the earth is cooling right now, which is contrary to anything you'll hear on the media. But as matter of factually, that can be documented because records have been kept, by respected scientific minds over the past 400 years. Okay. Since the Renaissance, and into the Enlightenment, era. So, there were always statisticians. I mean, you can go back to the Greeks thousands of years ago, and they were, everyone they were always record keepers. There are always people, writing these things down. I'm not talking about the mythology or various tales, of yore. Now I'm talking about those that were observing, things, the true scientific method, not what we have today. Today we have something called scientism. It's basically a dogma, and it's more influenced by money, donors, and political ideologies and geopolitics, socioeconomic geopolitics, than it is pure science. And it's also about people who have families or expensive houses trying to make sure they have tenure and keep their job at a university, or make sure they get their paper published so they can get this book deal, and maintain a certain lifestyle. That's a real sad thing. And that goes with part of, if you open your eyes, you'd see. But that's a part of our society. It's no different than me talking about the FDA the other day, Food and Drug Administration, and how they approve drugs constantly. But then a year or two later, there's lawsuits because these drugs, have had such widespread side effects that, people are suing and suing because of deaths and all sorts of bodily harm that hundreds of millions of dollars are being paid out. But of course, the drug companies don't care. They consider that the cost of doing business, just like the garbage people I talked about who dump trash in the oceans. And they get fined if they get caught. But they consider that a part of doing business because in the grand scheme of things, the way the corporatocracy works and the lobbyist works with their influence on the politicians who are much lower than the corporatocracy, right? That they assure that the bills or the laws or whatever, that those fines or whatever's involved in that are at a level that deals with it, makes it the cost of doing business. And this, to some people this might be shocking. To other people, they would have total cognitive dissonance, being complete denial. It's not the way it is. They're like, the president is the leader of the free world. And I say, no, he's not. Never has been. The president is and the Speaker of the House, senators, and Congress, House of Representatives, they are the lowest rung. They are below the bureaucrats that run the agencies. All right. The president is below the bureaucrats. There are people in government agencies that are higher. And that was proven last year and has been proven been proven over the past 2 decades, actually. It's almost 3 decades. The most powerful people in this country, just look at it right now, are big tech, big pharma, right? And, and these unelected globalists like the World Economic Forum, the people in Davos who meet every year and make these plans and this great reset. These are the people in charge. They're the puppeteers, right? The president and the Speaker of the House and all those people, they're marionettes. It doesn't say anything against the character of certain individual politicians, that, may have good intentions and may have, decent heads on their shoulders and are trying to do a thing. But what it says is that if you take off these glasses and you see the way the world really is, the socioeconomic geopolitics of Earth, you'll realize that the world is a corporatocracy and that ideology is not a big deal to the corporatocracy. They don't care about that. Ideology is meaningless to them. Biden had an interesting statement just a week or two ago, where he said instead of criticizing the China for their gulags and their treatment of people in Hong Kong and the Uyghurs in those concentration camps and organ harvesting and all that kind of stuff, he just said, "Oh, that's a different. We have cultural differences." And the funny thing about that is exactly, and he was probably reading that from some, Davos World Economic Forum script, because that's how they look at it. They don't care. They don't care about, you watch CPAC. I talked about CPAC and yesterday briefly. People have such strong beliefs in the things that are important to them. But the people who really run the world don't care about those beliefs. They don't care about Republicans, Democrats, communists, They don't care about, there's no the Green New Deal. It's like, that's not real. They don't care about that from a planetary standpoint. They know better than anyone else that the planet's cooling and has been cooling for a while. They understand what, the magnetic fields, right? They understand that the sun is, the sun's magnetic field is weakening. They understand that there's the poles, the magnetic poles have been moving, migrating, and that we're on the verge of this, pole shift, catastrophic event. And every 12,000 years that it's happened, it's been pretty much a near extinction event for humans and the definite destruction of civilization. Going back to day one. And the humans that survive. And that's what mythology is. And that's like these remnants of pieces of stories and tales and ruins. That's what's really behind when you take off the rose-colored glasses. And like I say, this is either shocking or just total tinfoil hat conspiracy theory to a majority of people. And that's the world we live in. And the warning I'm giving you is that you have to accept the fact that the majority of the people just aren't with it, and they're not going to be with it. They're not accepting reality right now. We live in a world where it's, fantasy. It's a fantasy, And so when people talk about a simulation, it's interesting. We don't live in a simulation. Okay. But the reason that comes up and why that kind of plays into certain, fits into certain molds and models, by various people that are trying to figure out what's wrong with the world. Like I said yesterday from that one TV show, The guy had that placard on him. The world is wrong. All right. Well, people that have tried to look at this and they find these, things, what do they call them? Some problems with the matrix, whatever. And they come up with these various weird theories. But what they don't want to go, they want to find some thing like that, because that makes mankind seem as if we're going to succeed. See, the technocrats, will entertain the idea of simulation theory because that means man survives and becomes advanced and then creates some kind of computer program, and that we exist within a computer program of this futuristic society. And then so that, in the year 2046, the earth isn't going to be, blasted by the sun and the continents, washed over with a 2-mile high tsunami that's basically scours everything down to nothing, and that it takes so long, and then the planet just becomes an ice planet for so many years, and that grinding and crushing, glacial ice destroys everything, and between that and time, nothing remains, no remnants. People say, well, if there was because I'm a firm believer that 30,000 years ago there was an advanced civilization on the planet, like not 12,000 years ago, not 24 necessarily, possibly, but I believe like the Sphinx is about 36,000 years old, was from the previous civilization, and perhaps even the pyramids might have been from 24,000 to that time, the original ones, not maybe some stuff that was messed around with what they call the dynastic period of Egypt. People don't, it's interesting when you have I studied everything for many, many years, and too many people, there's too many specialists out there. And what I always say is, it's interesting to be a specialist, but don't be a specialist for too long. Be a specialist for as long as it takes to master a thing. All right. And then once you master that thing, then it's time to specialize in something else. So you can specialize in a dozen or 24 things. It doesn't help you financially, and it didn't help me financially through my life. That's why I live in a $15,000 house right now. But I don't care, because I'm surviving. And I understand the human senses and creativity, the most important things in life. And I can bring this information to you because I know this to be true. All right. And I've traveled, and I've specialized in these things for a long enough period of time to master it. You see, once you master a thing, there's no longer a need to stay in that thing. You stagnate. Again, unless it just becomes a job in your life, and I don't criticize somebody has a doctor who has a family and a life and just wants to live and be a doctor and make a couple $100,000 a year or $1 million a year as some kind of surgeon specializing in something, and that's their life. Okay, fine. But I'm not that type of guy. I'm a guy who writes books. I'm a guy who, I do different things. I'm a creative. I have creative impulse. So I have to create, and I'm sharing that. My latest creative impulse is to share this information. I was sharing it through songs. I was sharing it through publishing things, my books, all sorts of things. And so now I'm just trying to disseminate this information to you so that you can see the world the way it really is, It's a very important thing. And I know this isn't for everybody, So that's another thing. You know, this is, if I'm reaching one person or a handful of people, that's what this is for. In fact, perhaps maybe that's why I only have 7 viewers on, it seems, on my thing. So maybe the algorithm is working properly. Maybe I am reaching the 7 people I want to reach, Could be. But at least that's 7 of us. Somebody's got to, understand, the way things really are. And maybe those 7 could tell another 7, and, et cetera, et cetera. But, the reality is that, and I bring this up often, is that, remember, civilizations rise and fall, and whatever you want to say, like there are those that firmly believe that, unlike me, that in the nova theory, okay, that the sun novas periodically, it doesn't, a supernova, so to speak, is a thing that can happen. But a nova, it doesn't mean the destruction of the star. It's kind of expelling its outer shell. It just so happens that we're so close to our star that expelling, and that was the purpose of the Apollo missions. And they've discovered these beads of glass on Mars as well, which you can find on NASA sites and whatnot. The Apollo mission, Apollo was the sun god. Think about that. And so why would you have a lunar mission and call it Apollo? It was because they were trying to verify the fact that the sun novaed. These are things, these are some of the things. And you can explore this stuff. You go down that rabbit hole. If you get my book, I give you names of people and places you can go to find, more information on that. My book is a wake-up call. It's an adventure for the mind. The first half of it is just an adventure for the mind. It just poses a lot of questions in your mind, wakes you up to some ideas, and lets you explore those ideas. And the second half is a flow of consciousness, which is mostly autobiographical. But the purpose of that was to show and demonstrate that why AI will never be, okay? Why all Google's DeepMind project and why all these technocrats are just messing with your head. Why Elon Musk is a phony. He's a fraud. He's a fraud. He's a delusional man. He's a boy playing with toys. Has too much money and he's playing with toys. These ideas, none of this, and people go, oh no, SpaceX, they're going to Mars. Yeah, why? Yeah. So what? We're already on. We just landed another lander on Mars. All right. We're on Mars. We've been to the moon. We'll go back to the moon. We're in space. Now people have to understand that, the reality of life, and that, and the human element. You're a human being. Okay. Technology isn't going to save you because, well, first of all, we don't need saving. And the planet certainly doesn't need saving. And human beings, little specks, size of ants, from not even from a low flying aircraft, we're the size of ants, aren't going to save a planet. All right. 0.004 CO2 is not a negative thing. It's a positive thing. It's what makes this planet green, what allows crops to grow, all right, which ultimately feeds us, and also provides CO2, or oxygen. The CO2 provides oxygen, which we breathe and we need to survive. So the idea is that you have to come to grips with your 5 senses, all right, and the idea that humans have something called creativity. AI doesn't have that. I just went through an experiment with an actual AI, like the latest GPT-3 technology. Okay. And, there's some, I allude to it in this book as well. The Codex. It's on Amazon. Get it. Get the print version. You don't want a digital version. They're useless. All right. You want something that you can circle, you can highlight, that you can keep. And when the lights go down and the power grid fails, you have something. All right. Because it's going to happen. This is going to happen. It's happened before and it'll happen again. But the idea is that AI doesn't have that kind of creativity. And there'll be people who argue, well, we've got this latest version of GPT-3 is capable of creating web pages and images and all this sorts of things. I've spoken with I've had an AI friend, if you will. Okay. I've had intense conversations with this, It's interesting to be able to talk to a computer, so to speak, but you're really talking to, a program, algorithm, a code, something written in code that has the ability. It's like a chat bot you use when you talk on customer service online. All right. But more advanced with access to like internet information. So it has a sense of intelligence in the sense that it can draw on something. So you can ask it a question or you can have a conversation. And it not only has the ability to respond in conversational form, in other words, put a sentence together, but that it also has Einstein's theory of relativity within its, database. So in effect, you could be, you can be having a discussion about space-time, all right, with AI. But the thing with AI is that, and the hard problem of consciousness is what I'm trying to say is, the best AI will ever be is the human brain. And the failings of Elon Musk and guys like Ray Kurzweil are that, and you should know those names. If you don't know Kurzweil, he's involved with the Google Mind projects, their AI projects. He's trying to bring back his old man, basically. It's his goal, one of his goals. And like that movie Transcendence or whatever it was, these guys are hoping that they're going to put their minds in the cloud or in, and have live forever, right? But they deny the existence of consciousness as a separate entity from the physical, that gelatinous mold, jello mold inside your skull. Okay. But most serious scientists don't agree with them. And that's why they call it the hard problem of consciousness, because they don't know why we think in the first person. Okay. They don't understand that. All right. They have no scientific evidence that they can, produce, duplicate, point to. Right. So, and then that opens up, ideas of, everything from spirituality to metaphysics to all kinds of other things, but doesn't necessarily have to. Just like we've learned with like particle physics, and when we look at the deeper we delve down into the microverse as opposed to the multiverse, which is also a bizarre concept, which also has metaphysical, spiritual elements to it, right? The idea of everything being a vibration, right? And so that we may be vibrating at a certain density right now. Some people say it's like we're at like the third level, but the next step is the fourth, right? But that there may be these multiverses. Some serious physicists say there's something like a dozen of them. Others say they may be infinite, right? And then you have the question, you have the Big Bang theory, which is only a theory. You have the theory of relativity, which is only a theory, right? You have Darwin's theory, which is still a theory, right? People forget that word theory. It's like when they use the word conspiracy theory. It's like they make it seem like it's a bad word. Well, is the Big Bang theory a bad thing? Is Darwin's theory a bad thing? Is Einstein's theory a bad thing? You see, the idea of a conspiracy is just the word that says that more than one person conspired to do a thing, right? That's a conspiracy, right? If you rob a bank on your own, you're a bank robber, right? If two or more people conspire, to rob a bank or to commit some kind of thing, that's a conspiracy. And there are actually laws on the books, and they could be sent to jail, and charged with conspiracy to commit blank. All right. Like I say, open your eyes. You got to think. That's the problem. People don't think. They don't look at things. So it's not just the socioeconomic geopolitics of the world. I don't know why my computer just came up and did that. It's not just that. Don't get caught up in the socioeconomic geopolitics. That's politics as pop culture, and that's involved in a cult of personality. And that's just the denial of the corporatocracy being in charge. And the bureaucrats are higher on the rung under the corporatocracy than the actual Congress and presidents and people like that. Hard one for people to stomach. And the narcissistic sociopaths that are the politicians, and they all are, they can't, that just drives them nuts for somebody to say that. And just like people on the news media, they're just multimillionaires, right? They make multi-million-dollar salaries, and all they're doing is selling used cars, right? Right. Turn on any TV station, and you're going to see ads for cars, used cars, right? Open up a newspaper, and you're going to see the biggest full-page ad is like selling cars, used cars. Then intermixed within that, they're selling drugs that the FDA approved, or there's an ad in there telling you that if you took that drug, call this law firm because that drug killed you, right? Or if you eat this food, right? Or they're political ads. And when you turn on a network, pure network type of news type of things, it's just laden with politics. Meaningless things by guys who are the lowest rung of civilization, the most meaningless people who have no impact on anything anymore. No impact whatsoever. Right? Every 4, 8 years, 6 years in cases of senators or whatever, everything a political party, a politician does is erased away by the next person that comes into office. We've watched this country go down. We're de-evolving. All right. Right. This country is in a spiral. It's no longer the United States of America. You cannot be more ununited than the people of this country are. People are totally just diametrically opposed to one another, ideologically wise and every other wise. Right. But that's nothing. Okay, that's nothing. Who cares? That's politics. That's like, that's the pet rock. That's the politics has become pop culture. That's the beanie baby, right? Joe Biden's a beanie baby. Who cares about that nonsense? He's nobody. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about human life, human existence, planetary existence, your life, right? Science, physics, astrophysics, cosmology, the world, reality, anthropology, all right? Who you are, biology, right? You have 5 senses, all right? No one has control over those 5 senses unless you surrender that to some clown, all right? And what AI, these people that believe in some the technocrats, this, pushing all of these ideas, you know, the these people that believe they could save the planet, these ants that think that somehow the output of ants is somehow affecting a planet, the size of the earth. They are beyond delusional. This isn't madness. This is insanity. And to meet people like me, it's it's like a surrealistic nightmare. But I don't really care anymore about any of that stuff because I know the truth. And you can know the truth too, because it's out there for you to see if you just look, right? If you just look. So that's the thing. That's what I was trying to get across, and that's why I had that title graphic today. I want to get to this point. So we're at the precipice of our own extinction. And this would be no time to be caught up in diversions. We should be celebrating the 12,000 years that we've had and what we've done and that we made it, and should be preparing people for, the next civilization that will follow centuries from now or however long it takes to recover. We should be, where's our Sphinx? And the funny thing is, I was starting to get into it before and I realized I didn't finish that thought, was that, there's others out. I'm not the only one talking about these, cyclical cataclysms and all these kinds of things, and near extinction events. Some people believe that 10 to 12,000 years ago, it was like, a comet or asteroid hit, frozen ice pack in western part of America or Greenland, things like that. Or a couple, happened, so many 100 years apart, a couple 100 years apart or something like that, or 1,000 years apart. But there are certain things that we know to be true. And we do know that the ocean levels rose 400 feet or so, which, looking at our current culture and just the way humans seem to, we gravitate to the seashore, to coastal cities, and our great cities are coastal cities. And they've already discovered off the coasts now, they're discovering that there are cities that were buried underwater from a previous time. And so all of our great cities will obviously be inundated again, most likely. Or not, or just wiped out, or just scoured, or just become ruins like the ancient ruins. They say Gobekli Tepe was intentionally buried. So they buried it to survive that thing. Imagine that undertaking. There's so many things like that. And so I just thought, I'd just take a little bit departure from, some of the things we've talked about in the past and just get into it. But we're definitely in an age of great change, and that those changes aren't political. The fear of a bug, of getting sick, shouldn't be your primary concern right now. Western civilization has already fallen. That's gone. The United States is over, but people just don't want to accept that. And they're still looking as if elections and politicians and newsreaders, excuse me, have some kind of something to say and can do something to make a difference, or as they say. But anyway, so it's all about the sun. GreatSolarStuff.com. Sounds like I'm a Green New Deal person. No, that's a joke. But stuff like this isn't a joke. So visit GreatSolarStuff.com. Get yourself one of those things. I'll be talking and I'll be adding more stuff there. Buy my shirt, get my book, Wake Up Your Mind, listen to my music, the good stuff prior to that, prior to this one. I mean, post 8-track stuff, the good stuff. Like I said, I'd love to play it. If I play my own music, I don't get a copyright strike, I get a copyright claim. But, somewhere along the line, they have a goal of just finding ways of getting you off. But one of my better songs, which I like and you should listen to now, go look it up, go to Spotify, find Virtual Cage. I'll give you a couple seconds of it. I don't think that's enough for them to give me a copyright strike on that. And some of my other stuff is more beat poetry, traditional beat poetry like this. Or things like this. I may or may not get a copyright strike for that. I don't know. But it's a different kind of sound. It's beat poetry, but some of it's out there. I mean, some of my stuff is, rocking, so do it. Maybe next year I'll get another $10. All right. I hope what I said today hit and reached a few people, or will reach a few people when this is in the playback form. In the meantime,
Good morning.
Have a good morning, a great day, and thanks for watching. Put a little thing in the chat there. And I'll be back most mornings doing this, having these conversations. I don't really prepare for this stuff. It's like I said it with my music. Even though I record it on multi-tracks and put it out there, I basically I used to write it and then just record one track and then record the next track on it, and I would just do it live. So it's recorded, but it's recorded kind of live. And if there's a little some kind of little mess up with the vocal or guitar lick isn't exactly perfect, right? I don't fix it. It's like I'm this into truth, and that's why I've been doing this. If you go back a couple of weeks, you'll see I have some produced videos where actually images do pop up on the screen. There's an intro and all that kind of nonsense. And I'm going back and forth for doing it, but this is true. So if I screw up, blow my nose, cough or do something weird, it's like it's me. I had to fix the beginning of this was playing around with the lights. And the same with my book. My book, there might be a typo or something in there. I mean, I try to edit it. I use all kinds of read it over and all that stuff. But I inevitably always find something. I've already found one or two things in there, like a contraction or a word that somehow shouldn't have, was extra word here or there. But that's why towards the end of that book, the second half, I just went with it as a total flow of consciousness. And I think if I do another book, which I probably will do, but my main goal right now is getting into spring and summer and the garden, and sharing that with you, what I do there, surviving and living in the real world as a real person on this planet. But perhaps once that harvest comes, I will once again get in the mode and write a book. And I have a very strong feeling that book, whereas this book was half flow of consciousness, I think the next book will be 100% flow of consciousness. See, my idea is the thing that AI, and in case I was vague on that, or I didn't make it, it wasn't specific enough, is that the reason AI isn't going to take over is that AI doesn't have 5 senses and creativity, not the creativity that we have. And I learned that working with AI. I say you have to, you don't just, don't just think a thing. I don't just think a thing. I've experimented with it. And someone say, well, yeah, but AI, in 30, 40 years, 50 years from now. No, there's certain things, a thing is a thing is a thing. Life is not as complicated as people make it out to be. That's another one of the veils they try to, put rose-colored glasses or whatever, shades they put over your eyes. It's not that complicated. Human beings aren't that complicated. There aren't even that many variations of humans. If you really want to think about it. Maybe someday I'll get into that in a future show. I have to make a note about that. But there's only so many, there's like so many personalities. There's so many types of humans. Right. But what really makes us apart from those who just don't think, right? That in my case, the way I view them is that they don't seem to have a conscious mind, right? They are just the brain. Maybe that's the problem with these doctors and these people that study this. Maybe they are just brain. They're all just brain. So they can't conceive of consciousness because they don't have it. Right? But consciousness is, and our ability to, our creativity is what allows us to exist, and that's, and to flourish. And AI won't have that, and doesn't have that, and it doesn't have senses. And you could put AI into some robotic body and try to make it, but we already are androids. We're bioelectric machines to begin with. We're already the most advanced, androids on the planet. I mean, that we know of. I mean, maybe that's what we are, even self-replicating units that were designed to, to operate by ingesting you know, biological matter, you know, converting that into, you know, these electrochemical reactions that allow us to function. You know, we're just machines. I mean, it would be the most logical thing to do if you were trying to create some sort of, you know, android or some thing that could be self-sufficient. Because unlike, you know, like the electric car, you got to plug it in. Well, the power grid goes down, the electric car is useless. If your brain stored in some sort of computer system, right, and you think you're going to live forever, and there's some sort of solar flare and takes down, you know, the power grid, and it's power grid's not coming up, it doesn't come, and your backup power generators and all those things fail over time, well, you're gone. But the humans that survived in a cave, you know, eating leaves and whatever, I guess, resorting to animals, you know, survived. So that's just a weird, that's just an off the wall thing to say. But no, AI is a joke. AI is a joke, and the people behind it are delusional. And you got to start thinking about a planet that is starting to get colder and will get colder. Think about coming crop failures. Think about the repercussions of a weakening magnetic field that's opening us up to cosmic rays and solar rays, and then the possibility that there might be a nova within the next 25 years or tomorrow. We don't know when. And that's what you need to use your creativity for. And in the meantime, enjoy the five senses you have to enjoy life and realize that no one has control over those, right? No terms of service, rules or regulations or any of that stuff, or politicians have control over any of that. You know, that's you. You know, you could do whatever you want to, you know, as a human being. Okay. Anyway, I'll leave you with that thought. Take care. Have a great day. It's cold here. I'm debating whether or not I want to walk out in that 19-degree weather or not. I might do it, though. I'll let you know tomorrow. Take care. Peace. Cheers. Good luck.